Tonight, we're going to speak about a very sensitive topic, a topic that whenever a Rav has to get up and speak about, he has to be very cautious about the way he introduces this topic. Sometimes, as a Rav, you have to tell the whole community, sometimes when you're dealing with the whole world, so to speak, the United States or abroad, whatever it is, you have to tell them that a certain vegetable is forbidden. You can't eat it. There's nothing you can do. There's no way to clean it. And as a Rav, it's very hard to paskin that way. The objective as a Rav usually is to try to find leniencies for the community, for the tzibur, that they should be able to eat this vegetable. But sometimes you have no choice. You have to forbid the product. Tonight, we're going to talk, it's introduction. Usually I give a 5-lecture course. The first course, which is this course technically, so if you're in this room, you're really starting one of 5 classes. The introduction to entomology. Entomology is the study of bugs. Now, the Torah tells us in Parshat Shmini, which we're going to read in about 2 weeks, it tells us something interesting in the end of the Parshat Shmini. It says that the Torah is telling us that when they took us out of Mitzrayim, that one of the things that the Yidden did was to not eat bugs. They didn't eat insects. And Rashi tells us from there that if the Yidden did not eat insects just for this reason, it was worth it for Hashem to take them out of Mitzrayim. That's how big of a deal it was for Yidden. It is, even today, of course, to not eat bugs. Now, when you look in the pasuk, right, it says you're not allowed to eat bugs, creeping, crawling creatures. Rashi says something very interesting. Rashi starts to describe how severe it is to eat a bug. He says water creatures, right, creatures that are in the water, are considered 4 lavin, 4 prohibitions, separate prohibitions. If it's a land creature, it's 5 prohibitions, and if it's a creature that flies in the air, like a bee, if you eat a live bee, a mosquito, a fly, the common house fly, it's 6 prohibitions. The Pri Chadash says that why was the Torah so strict? If you eat pig, chas v'shalom, to tell a Jew, to eat pig, even a chiloini, he's not going to want to eat a pig, right? You tell him that I'm a Jew, I can't eat a pig, chas v'shalom, to eat pig is the worst thing in the world. To eat pork. It's 1 lav. It's 1 prohibition. But if you eat a bug, sometimes it could be 4, 5, 6 prohibitions. It's several times worse than eating pig. And the Pri Chadash says that we live, specifically in his time, people were very lax. They had a very lax attitude. They weren't so scrupulous when it came to checking produce, And for this reason, the Chazal, the Chachamim decided that they had to put a very strict ruling on the matter. Now, often people ask me, where does it say in the Torah that you have to be an expert? Tonight we're going to do entomology. We're going to learn about insects. Where does it say I have to learn about insects? I have to know what all these different names of insects are. I have to know what their characteristics are, how to deal with them. Where does it say in the Torah you have to know this? If you look in the end of Parshat Shmini, it speaks about, besides insects, it speaks in the last pasuk, it speaks about kosher fish, right? It speaks about kosher birds, kosher creatures in general. Rashi says over there that, and it says over there you also have to be able to distinguish these animals, these creatures, from kosher or non-kosher. By the way, there are kosher type of creatures, yes, like grasshoppers, right? Certain grasshoppers are kosher. I don't know if you're familiar, right? Some communities eat grasshoppers, chocolate cover, right? There are creatures that are kosher. Birds also, right? We know that you have to be able to define what's a kosher bird, what's not a kosher bird, right? So Rashi says that you have to become an expert to define what's a kosher bird and what's not, and what's a kosher behema and what's not a kosher behema. Chas v'shalom, you're going to make a mistake and eat a non-kosher animal, a non-kosher bird. It's right? It's 1 prohibition. So let's think about it logically. Think about it. If to eat an animal, which the Torah is telling us that you have to learn how to check animals, how to recognize what's a kosher animal, what's not a kosher animal, right? Through its features. Even more so if it's one prohibition, if you eat a non-kosher animal. Even more so with insects. It's several prohibitions, it's several times worse. So obviously it's a clear-cut case that of course you're going to have to learn how to recognize bugs. The main reason why we do teach about the different types of bugs is because each bug you deal with differently when you check produce. Some bugs, we're going to see soon, wash off through water. You just wash it and it comes right off. Some bugs you have to use soap. Some bugs you can use water, soap, or any other method, it won't come off. And if you don't know what this bug is, you don't know how to recognize it, you're going to have a big problem. I'll give you a little dramatic case. There was a Kashrut, there's a Kashrut organization, and they made a gathering of many Rabbanim, and they were talking about this topic. So, a friend of mine got up to speak, and he was explaining all the different bugs, the scientific aspect of all the different types of bugs. And he got to a specific bug. It's called a leaf miner. So the Rabbanim in the crowd were trying to understand, they were trying to contemplate, what's the problem? Why is it that if I wash this produce, I don't see, what happened? Why is it that if I wash this produce, I don't see, it doesn't come off? What's the problem? They didn't understand what a leaf miner is. And we're going to soon see that leaf miners, if you don't know how to deal with them properly, if you don't know how to take them out of the product, it won't come out. You just have to know what it is. The most common question I always get by Rabbanim is as follows. In Bukhara, my ancestors knew the differences in bugs. What did they do? They took the product, they washed it, and that's it. That was the end of the day. That was it. You're telling me they ate bugs? They were careful, they checked, they did what they had to do. And it was so bad, somebody called me up and said to me, can I take garlic and put it in my oshplo and cook it together without peeling it? I said to him, no, you cannot do that. He says to me, why? What's the problem? I said, there could be bugs in there. He's like, what are you talking about? In Bukhara, they had bugs, people put garlic all the time in their oshplo. And we're going to soon see what the problem is. Why? What is the bug? And what's the problem? Because this is, in the past few months, this has been such a big talk among the Kashrut agencies about what the problem is with garlic. And we'll soon see if it's really a problem. But in the United States, let's start with the United States, because that's where we live. Why is it that we see today, everybody talks about bugs? 20 years ago, I never really heard much about bugs, right? You didn't hear so many people talking about bugs so much. But now today, the hottest topic in any Kashrut organization that you deal with, right? When you speak about a topic about bugs, you get phone calls galore. I have a friend that he runs a radio station, and a Jewish one. And whenever he speaks about bugs, the phone just doesn't stop. Hundreds of calls. I want to know how to check the bug. I want to know how to check bugs. Various different types of bugs. What's going on? Why is it such a big infestation? I'm going to give you several reasons why. Years ago, they didn't really have import and export. Meaning that, I'll tell you something interesting. I was dealing with a real estate broker, and he tells me that he loves, in Italy, there's a certain restaurant, he's not a religious person, he loves a certain type of cheese from Italy. And it's made with some soup and other items. And I said, wow, so how do you get the food? It's in a restaurant in the middle of Italy. Oh, and very simple. I make an order. UPS, I explain it that way. UPS comes, picks it up. They air ship it by mail. And within that night, let's say I order in the morning, within that night, I get the delivery. And I get to have the meal that I want from Italy. In that little coffee shop or that little restaurant. So we live in a generation that if you want something from a different country right now, you'll get it instantly within that day. Why? Because they're able to ship it. Years ago, we didn't have that option. If you wanted to ship a product, you had to go by boat for several months, and by that time, your food would be ruined, and especially vegetables. Vegetables ruin very quickly, especially if they're not under, example, iceberg, right? Iceberg lettuce, if it's not under ice, that's why it's called iceberg, right? Iceberg. If it's not under ice, it turns discolored, and it ruins very quickly. It has to be under ice. Today, they're able to preserve these products and they're able to bring it in. But let's say you're in a distant country. You decided you're going to go on vacation with your husband, or you went with your family. You went on a vacation to a country you've never been before, and you saw the most marvelous and exotic produce. You want to eat it. And you're standing there, and you pick it out, and you put it in your bags, and you're ready to go to the United States. Why? You want to share this luxurious food, exotic food, with your family in the United States. But what happened now? So you have this food, and in this food, there's a possibility that you're carrying with you an exotic bug that the United States has never seen before. So you're transporting not just exotic produce, you're also transporting with it exotic bugs. So you could see every several months, people tell me, I don't understand, every other month I hear a new alert. A few months ago the issue was blueberries. And then there was grapes. And then there's garlic. Every month, it sounds like a joke. What's going on? Every few months there's something going on. And the truth of the matter is, it is possible. And we see it happening. Why? Because transportation. People are importing different products, and sometimes these bugs could come from one place to another. And produce that was never infested for, it could become infested. Another point to consider. Long-term storage. Years ago, produce was not sitting in your house, in your refrigerator, for a long term. Usually, it would be there for a day or two. Everybody has a refrigerator, right? Yeah? Years ago, Rebelsky told me when he was a kid, they had ice boxes. They didn't have refrigerators. If they had a refrigerator, right, they could have the produce for a very long time. But they didn't have that. So they had ice boxes. That's why it was common also to do malicha. Years ago, today, the company does malicha for you. But now, they ship products, they ship the meat and everything. But before, it wasn't so, it was more common to do it yourself at home for the household woman. Another point to consider, insecticides. Before the 1970s, they had an insecticide called DDT. Now, they used it for, 40, 50 years in the United States, and then they found out that it could have major side effects on human beings. So they banned the use of DDT in the United States. They still do use it in Europe and also in other parts of the world. And not specifically Europe, it could be some say Mexico, China. Could be China also, I'm not sure. But it's used. But the FDA disallows this insecticide. Now they use insecticides to a very limited amount. Now what happened was when they stopped using these insecticides, in the end, we see that there's a bigger quantity of infestation. Now, after that happened, the FDA decided that they're going to establish protocol of what's considered enormous amount of bugs and what's not. You see, FDA also doesn't want bugs in their produce, and neither do farmers. You know why FDA and the farmers don't want insects in their produce? Let me tell you why farmers don't want. Number one, if your food has bugs on it, what's the bug going to do? It's going to eat it, right? So your produce doesn't look nice, or your produce is eaten up. So you can't sell it like that as a farmer. So your job is going to be to try to get rid of the bugs as the best you can. FDA accepts that, understands that. They don't want people to, sell enormous amount of infested vegetables. It's not adequate for a consumer either. So they'll accept selling bugs in produce. What's the limited amount? Let's say you're eating asparagus, and I don't know if any people eat asparagus over here. So in 100 grams, which is what, a quarter of a pound, right? A little bit less maybe, right? You could have 40 insects, according to FDA regulations. So what does that mean? If you're a farmer, you're selling produce, you could have 40 insects in 100 grams of asparagus, and there's no issue. In broccoli, you could have 60 insects in 100 grams when you're selling. Sounds good, right? Appetizing, right? Brussels sprouts, 30 insects. Spinach, 50 insects. Just in 100 grams is very little. It's not a lot of produce. Ask any common housewife. I'm sure they'll tell you,
How many pounds is that?
It's about a quarter of a pound, maybe a little bit less. It's not so much. Maybe a little bit less, yeah. 2.2. Look it up. But So what are we supposed to do as consumers? Let's go to the next point. Now that I'm told that there's an issue of infestation, right? And I realize, people know that they don't know how to check. Some people say that I don't know how to check. I never learned how to check for bugs. I was just told that you have to know the names of the bugs. You have to recognize the bug. You have to know how to deal with the bug, because some bugs don't come off with soap. Some bugs don't come off with just water. Some bugs, you have to know how to deal with the bug. So you're going to say, you know what? I have a better idea. I'm going to trust the companies. So I'm going to buy pre-checked. Everybody knows what pre-checked is? So let me tell you something. Companies, I'll try to say it in a very sensitive way. Anything that has to do with money, and has to do with companies, and has to do with kashrut, always you have to play a middle role as a Rav when you're paskening. Why? Because you have to sympathize with the company, because then they're not going to want to have certification, and you need certification to help the people, right? And at the same time, you're going to want to have acceptable halachic standards, right, for your hashgacha. So a lot of times, these 2 points will clash, right? At first, you want to help the company, you want to work with the company. At the same time, you don't want to have low standards. So certain companies will have different acceptable standards. Some companies are much more stringent than others. Now there's 3 ways, technically, how a company certifies a product. Meaning, let's say we're dealing with a leafy vegetable. We're dealing with, romaine lettuce, iceberg, cabbage. These are regular pre-checked products that we buy in the store. Broccoli, right? So the first thing they're going to do, they're going to go down to the field. Now they're sitting in the field, right? And what are they doing? They're checking how bad infestation is. If the infestation is is terrible, right? Then they will not recommend that lot or that field, right? Or that crop for the Jewish community. They're going to look for fields that are more less infested. The second thing they're going to do is that once it comes in, right, to the company, they're going to wash it. Now they have a machine. They have a big machine. It's like a laundry machine, big machines, right? Tumbler machine. And it's going to basically triple wash these products, right? And when you triple wash, the bugs come off. But the truth of the matter is, there is no, today, currently, as of now, there is no existent machine that takes off all bugs. It doesn't exist. They've tried many ways. All possibilities. You know, people assume if you boil a bug, it's going to melt. It's not going to melt. It's still going to be there. They've tried boiling. They've tried watering it down. They've tried everything. One thing is for certain, the bug will still be around. Whether they remove the bug from the vegetable, that's a separate point. But it's not going to destroy the bug and make the bug diminish. So due to that reality, we can't even trust machinery. Some companies, there's a specific company which accepts this. I want to mention the name. They proudly and publicly announce what I'm about to tell you, this protocol and their halachic standard, which is like this. They hold, the star K, they hold that cabbage and iceberg, right? When they go into the fields, if it's relatively clean, right? And they wash it. They said they have very good machinery. That it'll probably to the point that it's going to completely remove all the bugs. So they say it's permitted to sell it this way. Now, most companies do another product, another step, which is they actually check the product. They check the produce right before packaging. So they'll be in the company after it was checked in the fields, after it was washed, right before, even during pre-packaging, they're going to open up some samples and they're going to check to see if there's any infestation. And if from a specific lot, which is like a box, let's say, there's some infestation, so they'll deny that for Jewish people. Give it to the Goyim, whatever it is, they'll sell it to the Goyim, right? Or maybe they'll wash it over, depends on the company. But one thing is for certain, most companies today aside for these two products, which that I said with the Rav Heinemann, the Star K, right? Most companies try to do all three. Okay? Now, what about Eretz Yisrael? In Pesach time, the women are going to go to the store, and they're going to buy romaine lettuce, right? Okay. They're going to buy romaine lettuce. You're going to see companies from Israel, you're going to see companies from America, and you're going to be so confused about there's 50 different companies, which one do I buy, right? Right? Which one do I buy? Okay. You have to look, when you buy any company, you have to look to see what it says in the wording. Because some companies are going to write that you have to wash the vegetable, you have to use soap with the vegetable, and then you could eat the product. You know what that means? In Eretz Yisrael, there's two types of greenhouses. There's a greenhouse that is completely clean, and there's no bugs, right? And when they sell you the product, it's completely clean, you don't have to check it. And there's a greenhouse where they accept a certain tolerability of insects. But they believe, and they know, they've tested it, that if you wash it according to the instructions that they write on the pre-checked bags, right? They'll tell you to wash it 3 times with soap and whatever the case may be. They know that all those bugs will be removed. So it's very important when you go to the store, you're going to buy for Pesach, romaine or any other products, make sure it says you follow instructions. If it says it's vacuum packed and it says no washing necessary, then you know that that's not what it is. But when you buy from Eretz Yisrael, and even in America, they have 1 or 2 companies that do that also. They write, so it's in a way it is a little bit confusing because they're selling you a product which you have to clean, and if you're going to check the product, right? Which, especially when it's a little bit hot outside, you check the product, you'll find some bugs, you're going to say, what's going on? I'm buying a product which I'm assuming has a hashgacha, but it has bugs in it, so what am I doing here? What's the point? And the answer is that, yeah, they have some bugs, it's true. But definitely when you wash it to the instructions that they tell you, it'll completely come off, it's not an issue. Okay, now we're going to do to the second point, which is we're going to do the bugs. Okay? Now, I want to tell you, I gave this shir in Brooklyn not too long ago, and I told the rabbi of the shul, you should know, this is very, it could be traumatizing. So you got to hold on to your seats, you're going to see things, maybe some people have seen these things before, I don't know. But, I'm going to show you what's going on out in the world, okay? So, let's go to the side. Good chair, 1 second. Just focus on the... Focus on the screen, okay? Now, this book came out about 2-3 years ago, written by Rav Moshe Vaya. Now, why am I showing you this book? There's several reasons. Number one, this book is a very good book when it comes to recognizing and knowing which bugs exist in different produce. He has pictures, very, very detailed pictures, and he explains to you how to check the product. He tells you what bug is in the product. Okay? Now, I went to several of his shiurim. He comes to the United States every year, and he gives classes, shiurim. And I went to his shiurim, very similar to what you're going to see soon. His is much longer, actually, more in depth. And he has a company. His Talmidim have a company, actually. It's under his name as well, of course. And they're the mashgichim in this company. I'll tell you the company. It's Positive Produce. And the main mashgiach there, his name is Rabbi David Goldstein. Okay? I learned from him. I learned how to check for bugs by him. So if you want to know where I learned from, and who the teacher that I learned from, my mentor, that taught me how to check for bugs, specifically checking for bugs. Okay, his name is Rabbi David Goldstein, and he's a student, prime disciple of Rav Moshe Vaya. He actually more or less represents the United States when it comes to Bedekat Tolayim for Rav Moshe Vaya. Rav Moshe Vaya lives in Eretz Yisrael. Now, for years, Rav Moshe Vaya came out with, like 20, 30 years ago, he came out with books, 3 books on Bedekat Tolayim for Eretz Yisrael. So a lot of Rabbanim said in the United States, a lot of Kashrut agencies said, yeah, he's good for Eretz Yisrael. The amount of infestation in Eretz Yisrael is very different from the amount of infestation in America. So that's why he decided to write an English version geared specifically for the United States. Okay? 1 second. Okay, so this is Rav Moshe Vaya. He's in a field. He's checking the produce to see if there's any how the infestation is in the field. If it's good or bad, what's going on? What's the story? Okay, the first bug. Please turn off the lights, please. You don't need the lights. Okay, this is the first bug. Now this bug is called a mite. Does anybody know what it looks like? What does it look like when you look at this bug? Here, let me use this.
It looks like a...
What does this look like? What do you see over there? What? The first thing comes to your mind. What does it look like? A what?
Crab.
Okay. Spider. Okay, it looks like a spider. Actually, it's called a spider mite. Now, the reason why it's called a spider mite is because actually it's related to ticks and spiders. Okay? But it is defined as an insect in the study of entomology. Okay? Even though it's related to, actually, spiders are insects also, but the type we deal with in produce, right, this is specifically geared towards that. It is related to, again, it's related to spiders and ticks. So that's why it's called spider mite. There are different types of mites, but this is the most common type of mite you'll see. If you notice, I'll show you right here. If you notice, let's look at the adult male. You see on the sides it has a little bit black on both sides. When you see them, they're very small by the way, it'll look like 2 dots. So some people recognize it that way. Adult female is a little bit bigger, right? You'll see like 2 dots on the side. Let me tell you something. This bug is one of the most smallest bugs out of all insects that you're going to be dealing with when you're checking produce. It's a very common bug. You see it you could see it in strawberries. You could see it in spinach. You could see it in scallions. You could see it in celery and in Bukharian community, cilantro, dill, parsley. It's blueberries. You could see it in grapes recently. We're going to soon see garlic. I'm going to show you a live demonstration. We're going to check garlic. I didn't check the garlic. I don't know if it's infested. I'm not saying it is. We'll check to see. We'll do it together as a group.
You need a magnifier to see those?
That's where we're going to get at. Okay. So the whole argument, there's a very big argument among the poskim, specifically some poskim in Eretz Yisrael and the poskim in America. The poskim in America say that, how do you identify a bug? What's the size of the bug? So Rabbanim, for example, Rabelsky says that there's no number to identify a bug. Meaning that you look at it, you don't recognize it, it's so small, it looks like a dot, it's not moving, right? Clearly, he says it's mutter. Why? Because you don't see legs, you see a dot, which a lot of times this looks like a dot, and it's not moving, it should be permitted. Now let me tell you where the problem is. In Eretz Yisrael, right, the Rabbanim, right, Ravaya specifically, he gave a number of what the size of the bug has to be. Now, typically this bug could be about, let's go millimeters. It's about 0.4 millimeters, okay, of a millimeter, 0.4. It's a little bit less than half of a millimeter. Sometimes it could be 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, right? Usually it's never going to be bigger than 0. I don't think, to my knowledge, it's going to be any more than 0.5. Usually it's not that big. It could be that big sometimes, but usually, let's say, average is about 0.4. Now, Ravaya says anything beyond 0.2 is considered big enough that you could actually see. The truth of the matter is, if I put any person over here, I put this bug in front of you, and you're standing about several inches away from it, you probably will not recognize its feet, you will not recognize the bug. And now, if I take an expert, right, that's been doing Bedekat Tolayim for several years, right, he will recognize that bug instantly. Why? Because he was trained for it. Now, then they have a machlokit. So what's called training? How much do you have to train? How long do you think you have to train for this bug? So the truth of the matter is, some Rabbanim will tell you only to train for several minutes. Half an hour, an hour. And if you don't, even after half an hour, you're still not grasping what the bug looks like, you're not getting the bug, technically maybe that bug is permitted. Right? Now we're talking about when it's not moving. If it's moving, it's usher because you see it running, right? You can't say that the bug is not there if you see it running across the light box, right? I'll tell you a story. Somebody came to one of my balabatim came to my house. It was me, my wife, and my balabat came to my house. And at that moment, I was checking for insects. I brought I had a light box. I have a light box in my house, and I actually brought a light box here. We're going to do insects a little bit after the share, and I was doing strawberries. I was checking strawberries, and he says to me, "Can you show me a bug?" I said, "Sure." I showed him a mite, no magnifying glass, no nothing, and he says to me, "It can't be. That's a bug. That looks like a black dot. It looks like a dot. It's not a bug. It's a dot." I said, "No, it's a bug." So he calls over my wife. Now my wife, I was teaching her during that time. It was a little while ago. And she says, "I don't know, it looks like a dot to me also." And all of a sudden, the most beautiful thing happened. You know what happened? The bug got up and it started to run across the light box. And you had to see their horror. They were horrified, like, "Whoa, I can't believe it." You know? So the truth of the matter is that when you're learning mites, right, you're learning these bugs, in the beginning you will not think it's a bug. You'll just think it looks like a seed, or looks just, when I'm going to show you mites in real life, you'll see what I'm talking about. But eventually you're going to develop an eye for it. That's what we try to do. The only machloket is, in the United States, Rabbanim in the United States, is how much of an eye do you have to develop? Do I have to learn mites for 3 weeks, a month, 2 months straight to know what a bug looks like? Where does it say in the Torah like that? And it doesn't. And who says I have to use a magnifying glass? I have a magnifying glass, by the way, over here. Okay? You can see I have a magnifying glass. Okay? Now, do I need a magnifying glass? Why do people use magnifying glasses, by the way? Is it to make something usher? That's not the way you're supposed to use a magnifying glass. Magnifying glass, why mashgichim use magnifying glasses, right, is to make sure that something that is permitted, they don't forbid. Sometimes you'll see dirt, you'll think it's a bug, you're not sure. You use a magnifying glass to verify that it's dirt. You're not using it to be stringent. Because truth of the matter is, when I teach how to check, I expect them to use magnifying glasses. Eventually, I wean them off, that they shouldn't use magnifying glasses altogether. The reason why I want them to use it is just to recognize what they're looking for. If I take a guy that doesn't know anything about cars, and I bring him to a lot which has 1,000 different types of cars, and I tell him, "Bring me the LS400 Lexus," he's going to know what I'm talking about? He's never seen a car in his life. He's seen a car, he doesn't know what a Lexus looks like. So he doesn't know how to recognize it. So same too over here. It's it's not exactly the same, but if you don't know what it looks like, so how am I supposed to expect you to know how to find it? So I need to give you a little bit of training. Usually after several minutes, you'll be able to recognize what a mite looks like. Eventually, by the way, when you do learn, you'll recognize what's considered you could see it, and what's considered you don't see it. And then eventually you won't need a loop at all. That's what we're trying to aim at, that you don't need a loop. Okay? We don't aser with a loop, we matir with a loop. Okay? Fine. Now, Ravaya says something very interesting. He says that if you take a loop, like I just showed you, take this loop, now it's considered times 10. That means the magnification is 10 times bigger, right, than your normal sight of a 20/20 vision. Because, by the way, you can't be senile, or you can't, if you can't see, right, and you need reading glasses, right, and you take off your glasses and you're looking and trying to find a bug, that you're not considered reliable, right, because you can't see the bug. If I turn off the lights and you're checking in the dark, you're not reliable either, because you can't see what you're looking for. You can't say, "You know what, I don't see the bug, it's dark. I don't see the bug, I can't see," so it's because of your eyes. So we're talking about a human being, average eyesight, which has 20/20 vision. Okay, we're not talking about somebody who can't really see well. Okay? Now he says that if you use a loop and use a times 10 loop, that's considered regular vision as an expert. So really your status right now, if you never learned how to check and you're using a loop, you're considered an expert with this loop. You understand? And eventually you don't need the loop anymore. That's his objective. That you won't need the loop anymore, now you're an expert. Once you realize you don't need the loop anymore, you're an expert. But as long as you're using the loop, you're still learning. It'll take you sometimes a few days, it'll take you a couple of weeks, it'll take you longer. It depends how much you train. A little training every day, twice a week, I usually recommend. Twice a week, 20 minutes, twice a week. It should be enough. After a month, you should have a very good idea, basically, how to find mites. Okay. Others say, listen, it doesn't say anywhere in the Torah, like many people want to claim, that you need to use a magnifying glass, so why teach with a magnifying glass? And I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to say it this way. You're right. You shouldn't initially teach with a magnifying glass. But the problem is we have a whole group of people in the United States today that know how to check, and they're experts, and they will find bugs on you. So you'll have these people come to your facility, we're talking about restaurants, as mishgichim, and they'll tell you, did you check the produce? Yes. Give me the produce. Now they're checking the produce on you, and they find bugs. And now what? Now his name is going to be ruined. Why? Because they found bugs on him. Your job as a mashgiach, if a person is checking, mashgicha, if it's a woman, is to be able to differentiate what you can see and what you can't. Yeah, I can see that bug. I know it's there, but it's not a problem. That's what your job has to be. Because if you don't have that, then you're always going to have somebody over you and telling you that you don't know how to check. And Rav Elasher from Eretz Yisrael, Rabbi Halperstam also, Rabbi Elephant from the OU asked him the following question. If I see a dot, and it doesn't look like a bug, I don't see feet, can't tell, and an expert comes to me and tells me this is a bug, like I did to the balabait in my house, told him it's a bug, and then all of a sudden start running. Before it ran, let's talk about it's not running, it's dead even, let's say. Is that bug usher? So he says that over time, if people know this is a bug, all those experts prove and constantly continue proving that this is a bug, he says, yeah, you should be stringent. You know it's there. And when you deal with Rabbanim in the United States, a lot of them say, yeah, it could be a gray area, could be. But who says you're required to go so far? And the truth of the matter is, practically speaking, when you're checking, if you find a bug, you're not going to want to eat it. Whether you could see it, you can't. It's not a big deal just to wash it off. So practically speaking, maybe it's not even the end of the world whether you make such arguments and distinctions. Now these bugs are very small. This is the most common looking type of mite. Now bugs, by the way, come in all colors except one, blue. I don't know why it's like that, but most bugs are not blue. All bugs, I'm sorry. They're not blue, they're all other colors. Usually the bug, whatever it feeds on, the color of the vegetable or fruit is the color that you'll see the bug looks like. So if the vegetable is green, the bug is going to look green. This is a flower. Those are mites on the flower. This is mites with, there's eggs over here also. Now, by the way, if you can't see it's a good distinction. I'll show you something nice. 1 second, different colors. You see the different colors. Now, if you can't see the mite, it's very likely you won't be able to see the eggs either. So the question is, are eggs usher? Let's say I know this is an egg. Is it forbidden? So the Gemara Chulin speaks about it, and Tosafot actually addresses this question. And Tosafot says that, well, I don't think it's usher. He wants the matter. He says eggs are not a problem. All the other Rishonim, the Ran, the Rashba, the Rambam, Ritva, they all say chas v'shalom. They argue on Tosafot, and they say that eggs are forbidden. Some poskim want to say that Tosafot is talking about Minatorah. Minatorah, those eggs are not forbidden. But midrabanan, you look, there's a Darkei Teshuvah that says that. He says Minatorah, of course it's not a problem. But midrabanan, of course you see an egg, you're not supposed to eat it. You shouldn't eat it. Now in mites, not all the time it's going to be a bug. So there is more room to see. If you can't really see it, and it's not always going to be maybe a bug, maybe a bug. So, and it's also durabanan, maybe So there's room for leniency. You're not required to learn about eggs, but if you see it, you definitely should take it out. That's what Belskit says all the time. You see the eggs? See different colors. See video, 1 second. This is magnified many times over and over again. Now you look at the mite, you see it's walking around. Again, a lot of those eggs you probably will not see. It'll probably take you many years to learn how to see eggs. Let's just deal with the mites. Okay, how do you get rid of this bug? Okay? Let's go back for a second, actually. How do you get rid of this bug? You see this bug in produce. What do? The answer is you wash it off, it comes off easily. That's it. That's all it takes. It just washes off easily.
They don't stick with any...
They don't stick? No. We're going to talk about bugs that stick very soon. This bug does not stick. You wash it off. You have garlic. Right? We're going to soon see. I brought garlic here. That all you need to do is peel the garlic, wash it, right? And you're good to go. Right? You cut off the stem area, whatever the bottom part. Nobody eats that anyway. And you're good to go. But to eat it with the peel on it, and to cook it together, if there's mites...
Well, then you're not allowed to roast garlic in the oven.
Yes, you're right. If there's bugs in there, you're going to eat roasted bugs.
No.
But let me just point... One second. If you unpeel it, and you wash it, you're fine. We're talking about, you want to make oshplo. And in your oshplo, you want to take the garlic and you want to put a bulb of garlic without peeling it and stick it into your oshplo. You want to cook it like that. And then you want to, because you have guests over, you want to make it look really nice on the table. You have to unpeel the garlic. And as you're unpeeling, what's happening? All the mites are going into the food, right? And then you're feeding. Okay, the dead bug doesn't mean it's a mutter bug. It's still us. The halacha doesn't change. What?
What if it's still whole garlic and you don't eat it? Is that bad?
If you cooked it whole and you did not peel it at all, maybe. You know what? You have to try it out. You have to check the food to see if there's any mites in there. But let me ask you a question. Would your husband mind if you cook insects with your food, with his food, and all that juice comes out? And, I don't know. You have to ask your husband. But technically speaking, I understand where it's coming from. What the lady's asking here, she's asking a very good question. She says that the point of the garlic in the plov, the main objective is the essence of the juice in the liquid. That oil just goes and it absorbs. And I understand that. I had a dayan, a tremendous Talmid Chacham. For 25 years, he's telling me. 25 years. He's an older guy. 25 years, he's roasting garlic bulbs, and I told him that it's a problem. You don't understand. He was fighting with me from head to. He couldn't accept the point that for 25 years he's eating it. Now you're telling him every Friday night. Now you can't eat it anymore. My heart breaks. I don't want to. It's not my fault. I didn't do it. Don't kill the messenger. But what am I supposed to do? I should lie to you. So I told him the obvious. He wouldn't accept it. So check it. Check it. If you find, you find. If you don't, you don't. And I want to point out something very important. I'm not saying that the bugs inside the garlic are forbidden. Because we said a minute ago, maybe those bugs are not noticeable. You can't see them. And a lot of times in garlic, you'll see that a lot of them you can't see. A lot of the bugs in the smaller cloves of garlic are not near a line. You can't see them. But some of them are. So if you can't open it to know, so what are you going to do with yourself now? You're going to take, you're going to take that chance? I don't know if you should do that. I don't know. Listen.
I thought that garlic is used to repel pests.
What?
I thought that in gardening that people use the garlic family to actually repel other pests. So there are really pests inside of the garlic? I didn't even know
Some
that.
companies use organic, they have organic produce, they use natural oils and not chemicals because, we have a whole activist movement, especially in the United States, that wants everything to be natural, right? So, by the way, those are more infested. Organic is always more infested than regular because they use a limited amount of insecticides in, vegetables in the United States, a limited amount. So, again, it helps maybe. I don't know about garlic, but they use other types of oils. It might help a little bit, but you can't tolerate 1 bug or 2 bugs or 3 bugs or 4 bugs or 10 bugs. So, yeah.
Is there any place where the most common infestation that we get our produce from, like Mexico or...
It's a good question. I'm going to answer you. I'll tell you like that. It's a good question.
You see these stickers on the produce, you see all these names.
Somebody called me up. Somebody called me up and told me, when I give a shear, I have to find produce. Like today in the morning, I had to go to stores to buy produce for the ladies, for the men. I want to buy fresh stuff, right? And sometimes I have to run around from store to store, especially in the winter, to find infestation. Everybody's running away from bugs, right? I'm going to run after bugs. I need bugs to show the ladies, right? And the men, right? Because I can tell you all day there's bugs and bugs and bugs, but if I don't show it to you, it's not worth much. You know what I mean? So the guy, one mashgiach calls me up, tells me, yeah, they found in strawberries from Mexico, let's say, in Far Rockaway, in this supermarket, that there was a big infestation rate. Go to the store, buy this company from Mexico, there's infestation. He bought like 10 boxes from there. Fine, no problem. I ran to the store 5 minutes later, literally. I bought those strawberries. Guess what? I couldn't find anything. So what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. It means that it depends on the lot. It depends on the shipment. It could be from the same place, even the same field. You have various crops. Each field, some of them are infested, some of them are not. You know? So it's very hard to give you a number, say that this one is infested, this company is infested. Every day is different also.
If you're buying, say, a large quantity of strawberries, like they do in these restaurants and places where they have catering halls,
Yeah.
do they sit and check each produce?
I don't know. You should ask them. It's a good question. Now let's talk about strawberries. Let's first talk about this bug, and then we're going to go into strawberries.
At home, you buy 4 boxes, you're having guests over. Are you supposed to check each and every one? Or can you assume if one box is clean, the second box is clean, can you assume the third and fourth are clean as well?
Let me ask you a question. What if I tell you that to check... One second. I'm going to... Listen. What if I tell you could check all 4 boxes within 5 minutes? Would it make a difference to you?
Well, yeah, of course, but don't forget, you're...
So I'm going to... Listen. The way I check and the way I teach people to check, it takes a very limited amount of time. You don't sit there and pick up every strawberry and look. It's a different way. You're going to wash all the strawberries at one shot. I'm going to show you how to do it. You don't have to do sampling anymore. Sampling is over, especially in your house. You don't need to do that anymore. I'm going to show you an effective way with the light box that you do not have to sample anymore. You could check everything. It won't make a difference if you check a half a box or a whole box. It'll be checked all in one shot, and it'll be more or less the same amount of time. So the question it's not even a question anymore. You understand what I'm saying?
Light box to every supermarket before we buy it. We buy stuff and throw it out.
So if it's infested, then you throw it out. If it's not infested, then you try to clean it. Okay, we're gonna speak about strawberries in a minute. Okay, now this bug, we didn't even start yet. There's so much to do. I don't want to. Okay. Okay, this bug. This is called thrips. Now, if you speak to an entomologist and you tell him the word thrip in a singular form, and you don't say thrips in a plural form, he will scold you, because the proper term, the proper way of saying it, the proper lashon is plural, not singular. So don't ever say thrip, say thrips, a thrips. Okay? So this way, at least when you speak to a scientist, you sound a little bit professional. Now, this bug also, if you wash it, it comes off easily. This bug is much bigger than the mites that we spoke about a minute ago. These are different stages you see over here. See? This is a smaller stage, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Here. Now, what size is this? Well, this stage is about 0.5 millimeter, which is 0.5. And this is getting bigger and bigger, and usually they reach about 1 millimeter, or it could be even bigger. It could be almost 1.5 millimeters sometimes, and they usually develop wings by that time, of course. And generally they're about 1 millimeter, about a little bit more maybe. Now, what happened was, with strawberries, they found most of the time this size. But then, over the past few years, they were claiming that they saw even smaller, this size. Now, what's the problem with that? We're going to see in a few minutes. I'm going to explain to you what the problem is that when it comes to strawberries specifically. But the question is, can you see this bug? This one. Let me get a second. Explain. Okay, here. This is an egg, of course. Can you see this one? Mm-hmm. It's bigger than a mite when you see it, and you will be able to notice it. It's the most common bug that most people are able to notice. Right away, you could see the arms and the hands. And it's the one that really comes out and says, hello, I'm here. So many people will get acquainted with this bug, and they'll get used to this bug. I recommend that if you want to learn, you must master one specific bug. Besides leaf miners, you must master mites, the smallest one. Because once you can master the smallest one, everything else is a piece of cake. Literally. You just have to know how to deal with the bug when you wash it. Okay? They come off with water as well. They have different stages. Let me show you a video. It's going to explain the bug.
Over the past 25 years, the western flower thrips has spread from the southwestern parts of the USA to become a major greenhouse pest. The species, with the Latin name Frankliniella occidentalis, is a member of the thrips family. Adults are up to 1.5 millimeters long and prefer to stay concealed, for instance, inside flowers, where they feed on energy-rich pollen. Apart from ornamental plants, the western flower thrips also attack many vegetable crops, such as beans, as can be seen here. The mouth parts are designed for piercing and sucking, allowing them to penetrate plant cells and to suck out their contents. Many plant cells are depleted one by one within a restricted area, as shown here, much accelerated. These empty areas turn pale and are usually covered by dark spots of feces. Severely infested parts of plants can become dehydrated. Frankliniella occidentalis also transmits the economically important tomato-spotted wilt virus. Male western flower thrips are smaller than females, in order to insert their eggs into the plant tissue. The first stage larvae hatch a few days later and soon start feeding. Here we see the feeding process of such a larva at 5 times normal speed. Older first-stage larvae often live together in small social groups. A few days later, they shed their cuticle and become second-stage larvae, which also feed by removing the contents of plant cells. Once these second-stage larvae are fully developed, they usually move to the soil for pupation. The molting process to the next stage, the prepupa, is shown here on a leaf. Prepupae have small wing stubs and do not feed. Later on, they molt to pupae with much longer wing stubs. Finally, adult thrips arise from the pupae. At 20 degrees Celsius, insects take about 3 weeks to develop from eggs to adults. Over 10 generations a year can be produced.
Okay. Now let's speak about a little bit about strawberries. This 0.5 millimeter you can see. As some of you might know, there's 2 ways to clean strawberries and eat them. By the way, thrips themselves, as I'm talking, you can see the video. If you could see watch the knife, follow the knife, you'll see a thrip running around. You see it? Pay attention. See it moving up. Don't worry, it's going to keep on repeating itself. Anyways, a couple of years ago, it's supposed to repeat itself. A couple of years ago, people started complaining that if you take strawberries and you wash it well with soap, you cut off the top, you remove the stem on top, and you wash it in soap, and then you wash it through a power wash in your house. You have that strong stream of water, right? Each individual strawberry. If you take those strawberries, right? Some Rabbanim were saying in their from Eretz Yisrael, if I take those strawberries and I wash it also after you did all that washing, right? I will find bugs anyway. Meaning that you have all these Rabbanim in America, United States, telling you that just do this basic practice of cleaning it. Take it, wash it in soap water, strong stream of cold water, right? And that's it. You're good to go and you could eat it. What is the argument? Why in Eretz Yisrael, Rabbanim are telling you, no, it's not good enough. You have to peel the strawberry. It's not enough just to wash it with soap. And why are they still finding bugs? So they said that there's, like we said before, there's different stages of thrips. And the smaller thrips, what happens is if you see the seeds, now thrips, they don't like cold water. So when a thrip feels cold water, or any water, it starts to go under the seed and it starts to get stuck in there. So you can wash it and wash it, sometimes it's still stuck in there. So for that reason, that's what the Rabbanim Eretz Yisrael were concerned about. Now, does that happen all the time? It could, yes, could, no. It depends. But if you really want to have fun, test it out. Tell somebody, take the strawberries, wash it the way you want. Right after you know how to check, you learn how to check. Take those same strawberries, wash it several times, and see if you find a bug. Sometimes you might find one, you might find two, possibly. Now the question is, are you required to do that? So the Rabbanim in America says you're not required. You're going to become OCD. How many times do I have to wash strawberries? I told you how to wash it. Majority of the time, or maybe even most of the time, or all the time even. They claim all the time. There's nothing left. You won't find any bugs. But once in a while, there might be a bug stuck in there. You could use soap, you could use whatever you want. But the problem is the seed's so small, it might get into those little, it might protrude and go embed itself inside the seed and hide behind it. Now it's true. I've seen it many times. I did take those strawberries, I washed it, and I have found a thrip here or there. It is possible. But even if it is possible, are those necessarily usher? If I see a bug, I wash it the way I was told to wash it, and usually it's a majority, more than majority, 90 to 100% almost of the time, it's always clean. If I find a bug, obviously you can't eat the bug. But if I don't know it's there, I did my requirement of washing, okay? And the requirement of washing, by the way, let's say, is only midrabanan. Now we're going to percentages. How infested is the product? If it's anywhere from 10 to 50% infested, that's called miyat hamatzui. It's only required to check it midrabanan. If it's more than 50%, it's called Bedekat Tolayim, and it's required min Torah to check it. And if you can't clean it effectively and it's Bedekat Tolayim, right, then you cannot eat it because it's min Torah, right? You can't say it's safek d'Rabban l'kula. But if it's miyat hamatzui, right, and you clean that product so well, and the possibility of being a bug there is either less than miyat hamatzui, it may be miyat hamatzui, which is probably not. And a guy found a bug on you. Yeah, you're right. That bug is us. You're right. But since I'm not required to do that such a thorough job, this is what the Rabban America is saying. Therefore, I don't have to be OCD. I don't have to wash it 1,000 times. I understand that it's possible like a fine. And the Shulchan Aruch says clearly that if you check the product and there was one bug in there, you don't know about it, never seen it, can't find it, doesn't exist, and you did the checking, the washing, and everything you needed to do properly, and it removes all the bugs. But there's always that doubt, right? And we're talking about when you have a chiyuv d'Rabbanan miyat hamatzui, between 10 and 50% chance of there being a bug. He says it's mutter. Shulchan Aruch says it's mutter. If there's 2 bugs, he says it's still mutter. Of course, you see that bug, you're not allowed to eat it. When do he say there's a cutoff line? When there's 3 or more. Now it's considered Bedekat Tolayim. You can't eat that bug. You can't eat, not the bug, you can't eat the bug. You can't eat that produce unless you strain it. You do something to remove it. So that's the argument with strawberries. So personally, everybody's different. I personally do not like bugs, to eat bugs, I'm saying. So I would peel it. I would recommend peeling it. But if you don't peel it and you follow the other Rabbanim, well, you ask your local Rav and ask him what he recommends, and you can follow your Rav.
Now, isn't the soap dangerous by itself?
Yes, I've had that question. I gave a shir, and one woman told me, I didn't even get to soap yet. We're going to talk about soap soon, when we're going to do a different bug, because these 2 bugs, by the way, thrips and mites, come off with water. The next bug, actually, let me just show you the next bug. We're going to do that right now. We're going to talk about it right now. Comes off only through soap. Second.
When you say soap, does that mean like those vegetable washes that you buy?
Yeah, I'm going to speak about that in 1 second. Let me just show you what the bug looks like. Just give me a second. Here. This is called an aphid. We just did mites, which is the smallest one. Then we did thrips, which are a little bit bigger, which are bigger. And now this is an aphid. Now, aphids have 2 problems. Number 1, aphids, when they feed on the produce, when they're eating the produce, they create something called honeydew, a sugary discharge that makes them sticky and stick to the produce. Okay? In addition to that, how are they feeding on it? They have like a spout, a straw looking like a mosquito has, and it latches on and hooks into the food while it's eating. And then it starts to produce all that honeydew. Sometimes it produces too much. More than, and then it attracts predators that want honeydew. Does anybody know which predators like honeydew? Does anybody know what honeydew is? It's a form of honey. The ladies are probably thinking, honeydew this, honeydew that one. I'm talking about that one. I'm talking about honeydew. Honeydew is honey, actually. It's a form of honey. Okay? I remember when I just got married, side point, I just got married, I was by Balabayit's house, and he tells me, no, how does it feel? You just joined the honeydew club. I'm like, honeydew? What's honeydew? He's like, honeydew this, honeydew that. They tell you what. I'm like, very cute. Okay. Now, we're not talking about that type of honeydew. Okay. Now you have two issues. It sticks to the product, and it creates this sugary discharge. Okay? Now, soap actually causes it to dissolve. It dissolves the honeydew. Okay? Not all the time, but most of the time. So you still technically need to check. In addition, you have that sprout. It's clinging to the product. How do you know it came off? You don't. So if you don't check it, then how do you know? Now, technically, how do you get rid of it? I'll tell you how to get rid of it. For example, cilantro, right? Everybody loves cilantro over here, right? For their bachsh. Life without bachsh, I can't imagine life, right? Now, you have cilantro in front of you. And let's say you have aphids in there. So how do you get rid of the aphid? If you take a sponge, right? And you take soap water, right? Soap water dissolves the honeydew. And the sponge will scrape off, so to speak, the bug. If it's there, it's going to break it off. So technically, sponge with soap will remove it. So there are effective ways to even get rid of this bug. Many hashgachas will tell you have aphids, don't even touch the product. Don't waste your time. There is ways to play around, but again, you know what they're so nervous about? What if the lady or the man didn't do a thorough job? You're under pressure. You just got a phone call an hour before, dinner that your husband just without asking you invited 20 people to your house, and you're gonna have to make bachsh for 20 people. You have to cut up eight bundles of cilantro. I mean, if you're there in my house, well, it just makes me do everything, But right? But if let's say you don't have that option, what are you supposed to do now, right? What are you supposed to do? So you got a sponge, you got soap, and you get to go. And it doesn't take so long to do this, by the way.
Is there a special sponge for this?
Right. So any sponge that is, in the store that you use for washing dishes should be effective enough. It should be. I've been practicing this cleaning process on my own to see if I find any bugs afterwards. I would do it, and then I would check it. I did it for about 8 months, and I'm not finding anything. So the process that I'm describing to you with the sponge and the soap, just for aphids.
Can you use your fingers instead?
What?
Can you use your fingers?
Right. For celery, they do that because celery also could have aphids. So some people, they just rub it. But you're not going to sit there and start rubbing the whole cilantro. It's not practical. You're going to do it with a sponge. You go one swipe over. It's very quick and it's very efficient. It works very well. You don't have to sit there and do every single leaf. What you do is you flatten it out, you put several leaves, 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever, and you just go one swipe to make sure you got all the spots. You flip it over to the other side, another swipe.
What? Soapy sponge? Like you would do dishes?
Soapy sponge, yes, like when you do for dishes. If it's a little bit stiff, it's better, but you'll figure it out as you do it, yes.
What about using salt instead of soap?
Good question. Okay, now let's get to the question the man over there asked me before about soap. Years ago in Bukhara, we never used soap. We were told that we are natural people. We're the people that like things that are not toxic, because soap, right? Everybody knows that the naturalists and there are people that love organic vegetables, right, do not like soap. So is soap dangerous? Now, I want to tell you right now, unless they publicize it, most farmers use a small quantity of soap when they deal with their product, because I told you before, FDA regulations does not let you have too many bugs. In addition, you don't want too many bugs because then they'll eat all your crops. You have nothing left. You're not making your money. So they will spray a small limited amount, like a teaspoon for every gallon or 2 gallons. I mean, every 2 teaspoons per gallon, whatever the amount may be, right? They dilute it. They dilute it very well. Now, as long as the soap says FDA approved, you could assume that it's not dangerous. Okay? I know that most of the products we have eaten in our lives. Listen. Most of the products we eat in most of our lives have had soap on it, and we're still around. So we could safely assume, after so many years, right, we're still okay, that it's not going to kill you.
Rabbi, what about all these people with cancer? The people with cancer is because they...
So when you show me studies, it's a good question, FDA has to address, FDA has to address this concern also.
It's a joke. Just watch Dr. Oz once in a while, or any reputed doctor, and they tell you. They just a joke. Nothing more than that.
That is true. I understand that FDA regulations, there's a limit to how much you could trust any organization, right? I agree with that. But one thing is for certain, if they see a lot of people dying from soap, I'm certain the FDA will come in and make a problem out of it. Right. Are you in disagreement? If you see people dying from using soap in their vegetables, which everybody's doing it, right? And nobody's dying from it, and there's no plague going on from soap, it's a little far-fetched. But I hear your question. If you want to use organic, that's fine also.
It's okay for people to die. They have a certain guideline. Like the furniture.
That is true. There's a limited amount. Listen. We could address your question. I want to continue. I understand your question. I agree with you that there's an issue. It needs to be dealt with. I'm asking. There's an issue that needs to be dealt with. So therefore, I would tell you as a person that it bothers you so much, buy organic. I agree with you. Just check it well. Buy organic. Now listen, does vinegar work? Does salt work? It does work. There's a limited amount of how much it works. Now years ago, by the way, everybody used only soap and vinegar. Everybody used soap, vinegar. That's all they used years ago. That's what they did. Now, people started using soap. Why are they using soap? Because certain Rabbanim said that soap is more effective. It works better. So if you're asking me why am I saying use soap? Because it's more effective. Is it dangerous? Well, to each their own. If you feel that you're going to die from it, it's going to do something bad to you or your family, don't use it. You have an option. Now just check it. That's all. If you want to tell people not to use it, you could also do that. It's not a problem either. It's up to you, to each their own. But if they want to know if it works, remember, all the organizations are using it. Again, any product you're using on... One second. Any product you're using on the market, unless it says organic, is probably using soap. So don't use vegetables at all. I don't recommend in your house, if this is what you hold, you definitely agree with me. Use only organic. Because they're all using soap. We can't run away from it.
There's more infestation.
What? He's going to check it. He's going to learn. He's going to check it, right? Right? You're going to check it, right?
The unorganic.
Now, one second. We have so much to do. We're going to ask questions afterwards, okay? Now, to get rid of this bug, you have to be able. Listen. You have to be able to use. You have to use soap or something, or scrub it down. Let's say you don't want to use soap. Let's say you want to use vinegar and just scrubbing. That could help also. You could try it out. I would tell you to check to see, because the soap is going to dissolve the honeydew, and you see, if it removes it, you have to check. It's very important to know how to check. You don't have to always use soap. Products that people are using soap for years. If you know how to check, you don't have to use soap at all. If you could check it and you see there's nothing there, water could be good enough. It's not always that there's aphids, by the way. It's not always there's aphids. Now, I want to tell you something that might scare some of you. Now, aphids, the problem with aphids is that when you find an aphid in a product, they reproduce very fast. Aphids reproduce every 20 minutes. So if you find aphids in your product, okay, there's a very big chance that you'll find a whole mishpacha. So, again, with soap, it could help that it take almost all of it off, but sometimes you might still find. So you have to just check it just to make sure that thoroughly it was all removed.
So what about salt water?
You don't want to take that... Here, watch. Just watch how it goes. Look. Pay attention. You see how it's giving birth? Every 20 minutes. And listen, you're afraid of soap? I understand. But I think that insects are much... If I would compare soap to insects and what's considered healthier for my soul as a Jew, I think Hashem will protect me from the soap, but I don't think He'll protect me from these insects. Because I'm not doing my job as a Yid to check.
Salt
right?
will take it off?
But I agree. I hear you. Just check. I agree. Check.
Salt does not work against it?
Salt and vinegar helps. I'm not saying it doesn't help. But there were some people say, some Rabbanim, like Ravaya says, that soap is more effective. It's up to you. You want to try. If you know how to check, try it. You don't have to use soap if you know how to check. You can clean it and try to keep on cleaning it until you know it's clean. When you check that you see there's no bugs, you have every right to eat the product. A lot of times you'll see something that's not here. I checked romaine. Sometimes I didn't find nothing. Everybody's nervous. Romaine is fully infested with bugs. I'll tell you, sometimes I find nothing. We're going to talk about it later. I'm going to show you a demonstration how to check. I brought over here romaine with me.
What about cabbage?
Cabbage has less infestation, but it has in it thrips, the one we just saw a minute ago, and it washes off.
Water?
With water, yeah. It is recommended. There's other processes. We'll talk about it later. If you want to come to me later, I'll explain. But I just want to go through all the bugs now. I just want to explain one second. Let me just get to the point. Okay, look. If you're paying attention over here, you see all these are all aphids? You see on top of it is an ant, right? Okay. Now, aphids create honeydew. And we know that wasps and bees love honey. So they'll go and they'll try to attack the aphid for the honey. Now, ants have a deal with the aphids. What's the deal? You share with me your honey, and I'll protect you from other creatures, butterfly, whatever. Ladybugs. Thank you. Ladybugs. Yes, I'll protect you from ladybugs and all the other predators. They all come in different colors except blue. See, there's a little sprout. I don't know if you can notice over here. There's a sprout over here. It goes into the produce. Here. Okay. What's this? Okay. This is aphid. What happens is when it's born, after it's born fully developed. Every 20 minutes, it's a full baby. Okay. It 4 times throughout its life cycle, until it becomes an adult, a mature adult, it sheds its scale, this is called an exoskeleton. That's what it's called. You know what else animals do? Snakes also do that. There are different types of insects and creatures that shed their scales. Now, what is it made out of? What is it made out of? So, it's a machloket. I'll tell you why it's a machloket among scientists. Some scientists say it's made out of bones. You see over here, right? You see over here, look at foliario. This is scales, exoskeleton. This is the aphid. Now, some say that it's made out of skin. Now, skin, right? We assume is usser, and there's no shiloh at all. What about bones? Bones, there's no taste. Maybe it's batel, maybe it's not a problem. So it depends who you ask. Each scientist. Now, Ravaya holds that it's considered skin. He spoke to several Rabbanim Eretz Yisrael that said it's considered skin, so he holds it's usser. Rabelsky told me he's not sure. He thinks, because the translation of exoskeleton is shell. I don't know what shell is. Is it bones? Is it skin? It's not clear among scientists, so how do you define it? So if it's bones, then maybe it's not even a problem at all. Maybe. But definitely one thing is for certain, it is at most derabanan, and if you see it, you should remove it. The reason why we teach it, by the way, is because technically if it's bones, maybe you don't have to teach it, or skin, just take it out maybe. But why do we teach it? Because sometimes you might think it's an actual bug, but it's not. It's really just the bones. It's not the bug. You understand what I'm saying? You might assume that's the actual Isser D'Oraita of the bug, but it's not. Let me show you what it looks like. Now watch the aphid. It's going to start to shed its scale, and you'll understand how the process works. Watch closely. Now, one thing is for certain, everybody agrees, or Vaya, Rabelsky, everybody agrees that if it's in the food, the shell, right? The exoskeleton. If it's in the food, it's buttal to the food. Okay? So if you cooked it with the exoskeleton, the food is mutter. Because at most, it's only Isser D'Rabbanan. Everybody agrees with that. Similar to the halacha of eggs. Eggs are not a beria. An exoskeleton is also not a beria. It's not the actual insect, because you see, there's still an insect right there, right? That's just the makeup of it, right? It's the exoskeleton. Definitely, if you see it, everybody agrees you should take it out. Okay? But we don't want people, mashgichim specifically, to aser all the food, to say, oh, there's a bug in there. I know one mashgiach I spoke to tells me, yeah, I tested a mashgiach, and he told me that, he said to me, there's no aphids in there. And I showed him 8. I'm like, you showed him 8 what? And he showed him 8 exoskeletons. I said, that's not a aphid, that's the exoskeleton. Okay, I'm not saying he should notice it, right? But that's not, maybe he knew that it's not an aphid, so he, But definitely, it is recommended just to know the difference between what's asr and what's mutter. Don't start telling people that you're eating bugs when it's only at most derabanan. 1 second. Okay. Aphids are all products. It could be on strawberries. It could be on what's it called? Celery. It could be on cilantro, dill, parsley, any leafy product. Romaine lettuce. So you have to be very cautious about it. And if you see one of them, you better be careful. You better search to make sure there's no more. Now, what's this? This is a leaf miner. I said before, when we were talking in the beginning of the shir, before we started the presentation, that some bugs you can wash with soap, do whatever you want, it's still there. You can't get rid of it. This is what I was referring to. This is a leaf miner. What happens is, we're going to soon see a video, what happens is a fly, common house fly, lays an egg, right, inside the produce, and it punctures a hole into the leaf, and that egg turns into like a worm, early stages, and then it starts to make trails. And it makes leaf miner trails, like you see here. And it doesn't come off unless you open it. Some people, like if you use celery, it's very common in celery. When I was doing a training program, I had about 12 pieces. It was very hard to find in the winter. I had to go around finding. It was very hard to find because it's cold outside. There's not so many flies outside, I did bring some leaf miners here actually on scallions. Right now I just saw there's some the scallions that have leaf miners. So you open it up with a needle, the things, the metal, the pins they use for shaitels, to stick it into the mannequin. Anyway, so you could rip it open, and sometimes you could find the worm. A lot of times not, But if you see it, you should rip it off. If you see a lot of it, I wouldn't recommend using it. I don't think it's appetizing. See, this is a really infested leaf miner. See the bug inside in the middle? That's the actual bug. See, it's in the middle. This is the fly. Show you a video.
The leaf miner, Liriomitsa guidobrensis, arrived in Europe from Latin America in the early 1990s. It damages many ornamental plants and vegetable species, especially those grown in greenhouses. Adult female leaf miners cut fan-shaped feeding punctures with their ovipositor into the leaf surface. From these wounds, they imbibe plant sap. The large number of wounds on the leaf surface are called feeding points. Fertilized females lay up to 150 eggs at some of these feeding points. After a few days, the mouth hook of the hatching larva is fully developed and is used to cut a slit through the eggshell. The hatched larva then lies on its side and tunnels its way through the spongy tissue of the leaf. The larva grows rapidly as it feeds incessantly, leaving feces within the mind to produce. Leaf tissue is heavily damaged as the larva passes through 3 development stages. Just after a few days, the 3rd stage larva is fully developed. Finally, a large slit produced in the leaf allows most of the larvae to drop to the ground where they will pupate. But sometimes this process occurs also on the leaf, as shown here. After a very short prepupal stage, the larval cuticle gradually hardens to a quartet pupa. After about a week, this emerging female uses its inflatable bladder at the top of its head to break open the pupa at preformed lines and emerges. The emerged female then unfolds its wings, and after its body has gradually hardened, the developmental cycle of the leaf miner is complete.
Okay. Okay, so leaf miners, again, we said it could be in celery, it could be actually in romaine lettuce also, scallions. So you have to watch out for that. They're very noticeable. They could even be on oranges, grapefruits, lemons. I know the husband liked Corona and he wants to put that lemon inside, right, with the peel on it. You have to remove the peel before you use any orange or grapefruit if you see leaf miners. Another thing you find on oranges, lemons, and grapefruit is scales. Okay? Now, what is a scale? These are scales. Scale is inside the scale, meaning that you see it looks like a covering outside. It's wax. Inside this wax is a bug that's living inside it. It's protected by this outer covering, outer sheath. And it creates this outer sheath. So if you see it, you should assume that there's a bug in there. We had with blueberries in this summer, this was a major issue, that they were finding scales besides maggots inside the blueberries, which is not so common, but it could happen. They were finding scales on the outside. Now, to remove the scale on a blueberry, you can't do it. You're going to ruin it. You have to remove the skin with it. On products, you see here, remove the scale on an orange, or so to remove it on something that's on a peel, like a lemon or orange. It's easy. Just peel it off. It doesn't penetrate through. But something that's specifically on the skin, you can't do it. So it was a major issue with blueberries. Hopefully this summer, this is more, look, I think it's a male scale. They have a little bit of a different shape. The female is more roundish and the male is a little bit more curvy, narrow. So if you see this in the store again, and it's on a strawberry and orange, just peel it right off, and don't use it. This could be an issue if you're making orange juice at home, or if you're going to the store, you're buying orange juice and they're making homemade. If they're using this type, just be careful that they don't, the peel doesn't, it doesn't go into your orange juice when they're making it, or grapefruit juice. You could even have etrogim. I was in the shul once, and one guy asked me, my etrog has a black spot. What is this a problem? This and that. I'm nervous. I'm concerned. This is blueberries, by the way. See that spot? It's hard to see. I don't have the heart to tell him it was a bug. It was a scale. I don't want to tell him it's a scale. He's going to be upset. It's expensive etrog. He had like $60, $70. Again, are they near lion? Depends. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But in the inside, when you do have a scale, you can find a whole mishpacha of bugs inside. I'm going to show you. You're going to see now, this is blown up very big. Now, are they near la'ayin? Not necessarily, but if you see them moving, we said before, even according to, the Rishonim, they're more lenient, right? In the Shulchan Aruch, right? There's a Rashba, right? And the Rosh, right? The Rashba is Machmer, but the Rosh, right? The Rosh says that it has to move or not, and that's the Shaila. But see over here, if it's moving, right? You just saw a minute ago, if it's moving, then obviously that's actually an aphid walking around. If it's moving inside the scale, right? You see it walking around, you're not going to say it's okay, right? So some Rabbanim said, you can't see these bugs. Okay, you're right. Maybe you can't see them, you're right. In that stage, probably you can't see them. But again, if they're walking around, it's a problem. You should definitely check it to see. Sometimes they dissolve. They do live there. I mean, the female scales that look like oyster shells, which you see, what you're seeing on blueberries, they usually stay there forever. The males, more or less, they come out of that cocoon, that sheath, that covering, and they fly away when they become an adult. The females, more or less, like a half a cocoon type, covering, and they just stay there for the rest of their life, and they have babies, and they just continue having babies. Last point, flies, right? If you go to, I don't know if you notice, you see in the middle, it looks like little rice on meat. Okay, when you go to the meat store, and you see flies in the meat store, I don't recommend buying the meat unless it's covered. Why? Because there's a chance that the flies are laying eggs on the meat. They could lay anywhere from 75 to 150 eggs, at a time. So, and also FDA regulations, by the way, for the food service industry in New York, is that you're not supposed to have flies in your restaurant. So it's another point. So if you see flies, I don't recommend, listen, if you see the flies and they lay, I'm not saying, you see the eggs, if you see the eggs, you could just wash it off if it's in your house. If you see flies in the store, I don't know if, cleanliness, I don't know if, they definitely wash off. If they stay there for a couple of days, they'll become maggots. Which the Ben Ish Chai, Kaf HaChaim, Zivchei Tzedek, all the Sfardi Poskim say that even though sometimes these little rice-looking eggs do not become bugs, they could just be feces, they could just be excretions of the bug and it doesn't become an actual worm. Nevertheless, you have to remove it and you're not supposed to leave it that way it is. And it comes right off. You just wash it off, it comes off easily. Okay? It's more or less of a cleanliness concern. Okay, see it? Okay. This is also leaf miner. Leaf miner, see these holes, that means maybe a bug went inside the tomato. Another point also, white flies. White flies also create honeydew. They're not so common. I'm going to stop and warm a minute. They're not so common, but again, you have to be concerned that sometimes they could be on cilantro also, in other products as well. But usually white flies, the farmers try to get rid of them. They're very common when farmers grow greenery, right, and they grow their plants. They usually has this issue. They usually get rid of it. They're very noticeable. So again, if you see it, the eggs actually are very difficult to take off. They don't really come off easily. So you have to be careful from that.
How do you distinguish between just a blemish and the leaf miner?
Well, if you see a hole, it's very simple. If you see a hole, open it up and check. And if you see there's nothing there, then you're good to go. If you see there's something there, you know what to do next time. Right?
Because a lot of them, they're not perfect.
Okay, that's the end of the presentation. We could ask questions now, okay? If we're having... Continuing? Or... Okay. Just the last point. I'm going to try in the next month or two maybe to schedule something. Whoever's interested in learning Bedekat Tolayim for women or for men. This is the first class. There's another 4 classes. And I go through each bug. And by that time, you should be comfortable to be able to check somewhat. And over a several month period, you'll become more of an expert until eventually you're good to go. You always could call me and ask me questions, and I'll be more than happy to assist you. Okay, that's the end of the presentation.